Should I keep it in the binder?
And so our first toast of the evening will be by our Dude of Honor. Everyone, please put your hands together.
Hello, one and all. First of all, let me say that for those of you who know me, you know what I'm doing up here. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm multi-millionaire singing and acting sensation Hugh Jackman. And I'm single. But before I begin, I'd like for everyone to raise a glass and toast a happy couple. Jackie and Peter Richardson. They're not here, unfortunately, right now, but this is good because they're not going to try to beat me up after this. Who I'm sure are so glad to finally be rid of their daughter. Moving 3,000 miles away just wasn't good enough, especially when she moved to the same coast that they fled to. They'd either have to move to Mars to get rid of her, or find some sucker to take her. And they were here tonight, so congratulations. But before I move on, a word or two about, actually, Jackie and Peter. Growing up with Claire, I got to know them fairly well. Jackie was always caring, sweet, beautiful, and a delight to be around. And that accent made her sound like Mary Poppins. Everything went down with a spoonful of sugar. Peter was another story. He was cool. He directed some rock music videos. He had a soft spot for that bird. And yes, he could cook. But when he drops the F-bomb when he threatens to murder you, some of that coolness just kind of slips your mind. George, I'm sorry. Claire got her looks from her mother, but the rest is from Peter. So let's raise our glass again and toast the recently married happy couple, Claire and George.
You're here. Cheers. Cheers.
And finally, let's raise our glasses again, because this speech is much funnier when you're drunk. And if there are any jokes you don't get, or aren't funny, or elicit awkward silence, we'll toast to that one too. So without further ado, my speech. It was an interesting task writing a speech as a bridesman, or dude of honor, as Claire puts it. I've been the best man for a groom or three, and it's a lot of fun to make fun of him in front of an entire room. And I've heard speeches given by maids of honor, and they generally lack a certain... they suck. Best man speeches are supposed to be... yours is going to be totally different. I'm setting very low. Best man speeches are supposed to be mean to the groom and remind us how George still misses the toilet when he uses the bathroom. And maid of honor speeches are supposed to be sweet to the bride and not say that Claire somehow manages to miss the toilet too. But tonight, you get the best of both worlds. We get to remind you of why we love being mean to Claire. A wedding is a beautiful thing. It's a union of two people coming together for a common purpose, proving time and time again that lifelong bachelorhood is the way to go. But it's supposed to be an event that unites for all time two individuals out of billions and billions who belong with each other so much that no force in the cosmos can keep them apart. And that's what a wedding is supposed to be. So George, I'm perplexed as to why I wasn't up there with you today. I thought we had something special. But we're stuck celebrating these guys, so at least there's booze. But I think we can all agree it was a fantastic wedding. Now, bear in mind, I wrote this speech well in advance, so as far as I know, the wedding could have been terrible. It may not even have happened. But for our purposes, we'll just assume it's fantastic. I mean, look around, everyone's here all done up and looking very pretty in a classy joint like this. What refinement and taste. It's like the Royals, only without the inbreeding and without the significantly better looking siblings, at least on Claire's side. And as I look further, maybe a little bit of inbreeding. But it's great to see so many people here, people from out of town, people who traveled a tremendous distance, people who didn't seem to get that the politeness of the invitation should have been outweighed by the distance traveled. But you're here nonetheless, and Claire and George are very glad that you're here. We have also so many unexpected attendees. Claire, for instance. Glad to see you. So I never thought Claire would get married, and never to someone as great and awesome as George. And I only say that because I've known Claire since high school, since you were 13 or 14 years old. And it's hard to think of you as anything other than that nerdy girl who would bring her own PlayStation over to our friend's house and stay up playing it on Friday and Saturday nights, and Sunday nights, and Monday nights, Wednesdays, and you get the idea. Tomb Raider for life, right? We're talking about a girl who considered Dungeons & Dragons a spectator sport. And if you've never played Dungeons & Dragons, then you're probably way cooler than me, and I wouldn't have been friends with you anyway. This is a girl my friends and I would look at and say, you're just not cool enough to play Risk with us tonight. You can hang out to balance out the testosterone, the BO, and the acne. And granted, we were 15-year-old high school boy nerds, so we definitely beat her in the man move department. But I digress. You said you could cheer us on in Mortal Kombat, and that you did. But it turns out that Claire was way cooler than we thought, which, considering how little we thought of her, was not hard to do. She introduced us to paintball, and we ended up playing every Saturday for months. And we should have known better. We should have known better when she suggested a sport that simulates guerrilla military combat by arming its participants with automatic weapons, weapons that fire projectiles at over 200 miles an hour, a sport that requires, for safety purposes, its participants to wear gloves, masks that cover your face entirely, and thick layers of clothing to protect your body from injury. You look like a very aggressive beekeeper who did not want to be seen. We thought this was a good idea to play with Claire. It was not. It was scary. And it wasn't scary because of how good she was. It was scary because of how bad she was. Whether you were armed, unarmed, on the field, off the field, playing, not playing, she would shoot you. Repeatedly. And it wasn't about winning the game, was it? It was just about shooting you. Repeatedly. And George, you're probably thinking, well, she's different. We're married, we're a unit, we're on the same team. I'm safe. George, she shot teammates too. After our paintball adventures, we would all pile in the car, sweaty and dirty, and go to our favorite restaurant, Miyabi Japanese Steakhouse. It's actually less of a restaurant and more of a diabetic social club. You know, one of those cook-it-in-front-of-you kind of places where you can actually see the chef's sweat drip onto your grilled kidney. Where chefs wander from table to table like nomads, clearly not washing their hands between giving you teriyaki hepatitis. But that's where we'd go. And she went for one reason, because she was the only person who could leave with a clean plate and keep her figure because the fat kids she came with would eat all of her food. Inevitably, the night would devolve into a shouting match amongst our friends as to who would win in a fight, a Klingon or a Wookiee. And Claire was very opinionated on the subject. This led to the epic battle of Star Wars versus Star Trek generally, and the unanswerable query of God versus the Force. So George, don't get sick. The power of prayer does not work when you direct it towards Obi-Wan Kenobi. But that was high school. After that, Claire dropped off the face of the earth for a while. But pretty much, what I can say and know about Claire is she's always going to be that super dork at heart. And that she knows to make herself look better by spending an inordinate amount of time with people not as good looking, not as smart, and certainly not as female as her. So George, good luck. And no Brickman toast would be complete without... my name's Rob Brickman, not Hugh Jackman, FYI. Striking resemblance. Would be complete without the low-hanging fruit of a top 10 list. So I present to you the top 10 reasons George and Claire will stay together until the end of time. Number 10. Like an item at a clearance sale, Jackie and Peter have a no-return policy on Claire. Number 9. The Mayans still predict the end of time is only a mere 5 months away. Number 8. Turning on her British accent makes everything she says sound so much more profound and authoritative that George can't help but listen to her. Number 7, how often do you find two people whose sole common interest is Pauly Shore movies? I know I just moved to LA, so I'm sure somebody here is like brother-in-laws with Pauly Shore, and tell them I'm a big fan. I really am, so if you do that for me, I'd appreciate it. Number 6, Claire does not know the meaning of the word quit. Granted, she also doesn't know the meaning of the word erudite, abhorrent, or aggrandize. Her vocabulary is quite limited. It's kind of sad, actually. Number 5, Claire understands that a wife needs to be subservient to her husband and obey his wishes at all times. Number 4, George found a beautiful, smart, amazing woman that he should spend the rest of his life with. And yet he still divorced her to be with Claire. Number 3, Claire is too damn stubborn to give up and let you win by going anywhere or dying first. Number 2, because they love each other very, very much. No, wait, that was Brad and Jen. I'm sorry, that was my mistake. Number 1, the reason they'll stay together forever, their dog Henry could never decide which parent to live with. Now granted, Henry can't decide whether to eat his food or lick his butt most days. So I guess it's kind of meaningless. But in all seriousness, you guys are going to be very happy together. And I can't think of two other people I'd rather toast to and celebrate tonight. Not saying much, I don't know hardly any of you. But congratulations and mazel tov, and I just wish you the best.
Oh wow, thank you to our dude of honor, Hugh Jackman. Robert Berkeley. So that will bring us to our matron of honor speech. Everyone please put your hands together for Diana Needy.